As a result of this plan, students will improve their reading skills and reading attitude over the duration of the school year. Improvement in reading skills will be determined through a comparison of the independent reading level of the student in September to the independent reading level of the student in June. Improvement in reading attitude will be determined through a comparison of the motivation to read profile results in September and in June. At this public high school with block scheduling, sophomore students meet for language arts class, usually 3 times a week for the duration of the school year. This college prep class could have up to 50% students with IEPs and 504s, and there could be a co-teacher or a support paraprofessional depending on the makeup of the class. Over the course of the year, students read both fiction and nonfiction texts, and they are assigned to read in many capacities, including outside the class independently, in class independently, and in class out loud. This plan calls for 3 reading assessments over the course of the year. First, the PSAT, which is a yearly administration in October. It's a mandatory test that the school chooses to administer. A running records assessment for each student at the beginning and the end of the school year. And the motivation to read profile, which is administered in the beginning, the middle, and the end of the school year. And here's a timetable. And one of the things that you'll notice about the timetable is that the PSAT is actually on here once as the administration, but the results from the past year are available in the beginning of the year, and then the new results are not available until December. The PSAT is a standardized test. It's administered in October each year, and it provides information about students' abilities in command of evidence, words in context, expression of ideas, and standard English conventions. No additional class time is taken to administer the PSAT because it's given during the school day when a special schedule is arranged so that all the students can take it. There's benefits to the administration of a standardized test of this caliber, including the quality of the test design and the test questions, and the ability to compare student scores to other students not only within the same school, but to other test takers across the nation. PSAT scores are commonly understood by many stakeholders, including students, teachers, guidance counselors, and other school staff, as well as parents and colleges. This is one of the only times that high school students are given a standardized reading assessment, and the data that it produces can be used to track students into appropriate level classes, help their teachers to see weaknesses in specific skills, identify students whose traditional grades maybe don't match their true abilities. So some students get terrible grades, but when they take the PSAT, they actually score pretty high because there aren't other things like behavior factored into the grade. And it helps to identify which students are ideal for post-secondary institutions, what level. However, as much as the PSAT measures accurately for some students, the same cannot be said for all students. Standardized tests like the PSAT are notoriously inaccurate in determining the ability of students who are poor test takers or are having a bad day on the day of the test administration. Some studies highlight the persistence of some bias on the SAT. Additionally, there's no oral reading component like there is in other tests. So you're really just getting what the kid, and a lot of kids just guess. So you can't really be sure that you're getting an accurate score for a student. Additionally, the SAT takes a long time to administer, several hours. Test fatigue can impact student scores. It also takes a relatively long time to get results, a couple of months. Other tests, other assessments are much quicker than that. So in order to get a more accurate picture of each individual student's reading skills early in the year, the high school teacher should administer running records, which will provide an objective way to gauge a student's ability to read fluently, and comprehend a text. Running records provides valuable information that the SAT does not, namely a look into how a student reads and their thinking about reading. Because of the oral reading component, the teacher knows exactly which words a student knows based on the number of miscues in 100 words read aloud. According to Jim Rubin, running records has been found to be reliable when students are tested with a minimum of 3 passages. Compared to the SAT, there's fairly quick results. In particular, because every student has to be tested individually, so it could take a long time to get through all of the students. So some students will have relatively quick results in September, but with an average of 18 students per class and 5 classes per teacher, you might not get results for some students until maybe October or afterwards. You can compare the test results of students in the beginning of the year to test results at the end of the year to determine growth in students. Running records does provide a valuable enough information that it's worth taking the time to test each student. So if teachers only listen to a student read aloud and record the miscues and the fluency but didn't ask comprehension questions, they might inaccurately label the independent reading level of the student. So it's worth doing that. After all of this, to make sure that the students are always improving their reading abilities, it only makes sense to ensure that the students are actually choosing to read. So the motivation to read profile is an important assessment to consider. It's effective because it yields measures of both reading self-efficacy and the value ascribed to reading, and it does so with adequate reliability. It can be administered to whole groups of students as opposed to running records, and the results are determined relatively quickly. However, it's really tough to assign a number to somebody's motivation, so there's room for error. And for example, students might not answer the questions honestly. They might say things that they think the teacher wants to hear as opposed to what's really true. Overall, using assessment in the classroom to determine students' reading skills and then plan instruction around the results is a strategy that supports all students. Assessments can transform instruction by providing timely information that captures students' strengths, needs, and a specific instructional history. Improving reading attitudes, like using the MRP, can also help to improve some of the literacy challenges that today's readers experience. Readers today need to be able to sift through, interpret, and critically examine the information they encounter, especially information that's readily available to them online. Students today are tomorrow's adults, and assessing their attitude toward reading now and making adjustments to teaching to improve their attitude can be the difference between an informed society and one that can't function.